Hey modeling friends, in this video I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to add a sprayed-in bedliner look to your next model pickup truck build. The first step is to prepare the truck bed because we don't want to get the mess from prep work into the replicated bedliner later on. This step might include things like removing mold seams, scrapping any panel lines as needed, and performing any filling or sanding that's necessary. With the prep work complete, we can move on to creating the bedliner. I'm using Mr. Surfacer 500 for this, which is a very thick lacquer-based primer. Lacquer paints produce toxic VOCs, so please take proper safety precautions when working with it. I begin by brushing it on generously to the bed of the truck. Try to avoid building up the primer in any areas that you need to attach other pieces of the kit later on in the build, especially in areas that will be challenging to sand. If you do get a little bit in areas you didn't mean to, don't panic, you typically can scrape it or sand it off later once it's dried. Now that we've covered all of the surfaces we want to have bedliner on, grab a stiff bristled brush you don't care about, and using that brush, stipple the Mr. Surfacer to begin creating the texture. The primer should allow you several minutes of working time depending on how thick you've initially applied it. Keep working the surface until you're satisfied with the overall texture, making sure to get into any nooks and crannies as you go. Once the primer starts to lift a little bit with each tap of the brush, you'll know you're approaching the end of the working time window. Don't worry if the texture ends up a bit rougher than you'd like, because we are going to address that in the next step. And if you have areas that you don't quite have enough texture, carefully apply a bit more primer and work that area just a little bit more. Once you're satisfied with the basic texture, carefully check for and remove any loose bristles that might have been knocked out of the brush and into the primer. Then leave the primer to fully cure overnight. With the primer fully cured, it's time to knock back the high spots a bit. As the primer gets worked while it's drying, it tends to create mini stalagmites as it's pulled up with the brush. So use some moderate grit sandpaper, for example 400 grit is what I'm using here, and very gently sand the bedliner. I'm applying no pressure to the sanding sponge here, and simply allowing the abrasive surface to do the work of knocking down any tiny high spots without compromising the overall texture. After you have finished painting the exterior of the bed the body color that you want, carefully mask off the bed of the truck to prevent overspray and begin painting the bedliner. On this build I used Tamiya's rubber black color for the bedliner, as I want a relatively new look to match the rest of the truck, but don't be afraid to experiment with weathering techniques like dry brushing, washes, and oil paint rendering to enhance the look and texture of your truck's bedliner. Once painting is complete, all that's left to do is remove the masking, add any trim pieces, and continue on with finishing the model. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Let me know in the comments what techniques you like to use to replicate bedliner, and be sure to share this video with your modeling pals. If you liked what you saw, I hope you'll consider subscribing and checking out some of my other modeling videos on my channel, like this one.